The white tree is burning. Flames crawl up the dead branches like hungry fingers licking at the sky over Minas Tirith, turning the dawn smokered. Ash falls with the slow grace of snow, settling on broken helms and shattered banners, on the faces of the living and the dead. In the echoing courts of the citadel, where kings once walked, men shout and steel rings on stone, and somewhere below the roar of fire and battle, a single voice cries out a name that no one answers, as the crown of Gondor lies untouched upon a cold black cloth. If you are already lost in this darker turn of Middle-earth, help this tale travel farther. Tap like. Join the company with a subscription and tell me in the comments which realm you would stand for when everything begins to burn. The crown waits. It glints in the dim light of the Hall of the Kings, set upon a cushion of sable, mithril, and white gems, catching the glow of torches. The banners of Gondor hang motionless above, heavy with dust and history. The air smells of smoke from the recent siege, of oil and sweat and old stone. Aragorn stands before the throne, and the weight upon him is heavier than any helm he has borne. Gandalf is at his side, white staff in hand, eyes keen and searching. Behind them, the lords of Gondor and Rohan wait in a hushed semicircle. Elmer, straight-backed in his green cloak, Faramir, pale but steady, Imrahil of Dol Amroth, grave and thoughtful. Outside, in the bright courts, the people of Minas Tirith sing or weep, believing that a new age is dawning. The hush in the hall is deeper than silence. Gandalf's voice is low, but it carries. This is your hour, Elisar, the last choice of the West. Take now what has long been forsaken. Aragorn does not move. He wears no crown, only the simple silver fillet of the Dunedain, his dark hair unbound upon his shoulders. Anduril hangs at his side, reforged from the shards of Narsil, but his hand does not touch it. His gaze is fixed on the empty throne, carved in the likeness of the kings of old. He sees, in his mind's eye, not glory, but fire. He sees the faces of Isildur and Elendil, of Arvedui and the fallen kings of Arnor, all ending in ruin. He hears Elrond's voice in Rivendell, calm and implacable. The same blood flows in your veins, the same weakness. He feels again the weight of the ring when Frodo held it out in the wild, when he himself felt the pull of its promise. He remembers Boromir dying with his name on his lips, broken by a desire to save his city that turned to madness. He thinks, if I fail, Gondor falls with me. Gandalf senses the hesitation. He turns, eyes narrowing. What do you fear, Aragorn, son of Arathorn? Aragorn speaks slowly, as if the words are dragged from somewhere deep. I fear myself. A faint stir among the lords. Imrahil's brow creases. Éomer's hand tightens on the hilt of his sword. Faramir, watching Aragorn's face, feels a chill that is not from any wind. Gandalf's voice is gentler now. You have passed through shadow and fire. You have refused power where others would have seized it. This fear does you honor, but it must not rule you. Aragorn shakes his head. I have seen what power does. I have seen it upon the Black Gate, when all hope seemed lost, and the eye searched for me. Had the ring been in my hand, Mithrandir, I do not know what I would have done. I do not know what I would do if all the realms of men were laid beneath my feet. He looks up at the tall, empty throne. My line failed. Twice. Once in Numenor's pride, once upon the slopes of Orodruin. I will not be the third fall of the West. Faramir steps forward before he knows he has moved. His voice is quiet but clear. My lord, without a king, Gondor is a ship without a captain. We have drifted long. We cannot weather another storm alone. Aragorn meets his gaze, and in Faramir's weary eyes he sees trust, and something like hope. Fragile as a candle in a draught, he cannot bear it. "You are the steward," Aragorn says. "Your father kept this realm through long years of darkness. You have wisdom and the love of your people. Let Gondor be ruled by those who belong to her." A murmur runs through the hall like a gust of wind. Éomer's eyes widen. Imrahil looks sharply at Gandalf. The wizard's jaw tightens. "Aragorn," Gandalf says, and now there is iron in his tone. "This is not only about Gondor. The world has turned. Sauron is thrown down, but his shadow lies long. The kingdoms of men must be united, or they will fall one by one." Aragorn's hand finally rises, but not toward the crown. It comes to rest over his heart. "I will serve," he says. "I will be your captain in war, your counselor in peace. I will hunt the remnants of the enemy in the wild. I will rebuild the Dunedain in the north, but I will not sit upon that throne, not now. Perhaps not ever." Silence. It is Faramir who speaks, because someone must. Then who will claim the crown of Gondor? Aragorn looks at him, and the choice that has been forming in his mind, in his fear, in his stubborn humility, takes shape. "No one," he says. "The age of kings is ended. Let Gondor be ruled by her steward, chosen by the will of her people and the counsel of her allies. Let the line of Isildur pass into the north, where it began. I will not bind this city to my fate." Gandalf's eyes flash. "You would throw away the gift that the Valar themselves have preserved? You would leave the White City without a king when her enemies are not yet spent?" Aragorn does not flinch. "I would not risk that all should burn because of me." He turns then, away from the throne, away from the crown that gleams coldly in the torchlight. The hall seems to tilt, as if something ancient and unseen has shifted. The lords stare in disbelief as he walks past them, each step measured, his face set. Frodo is not there to watch this choice. He lies far away in Ithilien, healing from wounds that will never fully close. Yet somewhere, in some deep place where their fates once touched, a shiver runs through him in his sleep. Outside, the people wait for the crowning of a king. They do not know that history has just unmade itself. Word spreads through Minas Tirith, not as a shout, but as a whisper. There is no king. The tale passes from guards at the gate to healers in the houses, from Rohirrim horsemen to Gondorian stonemasons. In the markets of the lower city, among stalls of sparse wares and the smell of fish and smoke, voices rise in confusion. No king. After all this, they say the ranger refused the crown. A northerner, anyway. What right has he to rule Gondor? What right had any of the kings? He had the sword. He had the look. He had the elves at his back. That is what he had. Perhaps it is better so. In the high circles, the talk is sharper, more dangerous. The lords of Gondor gather in a long chamber that looks eastward over the Pelennor, where the dead still lie in ordered rows. The stone is cool, the windows tall and narrow. Faramir sits at the head of the table, though he leans a little on the carved arm of his chair, pain still living in his bones. Imrahil of Dol Amroth speaks first. "This is folly. With all due respect, Lord Steward, Gondor needs a king. The East will not sleep. The South will not forget. We must show strength." Faramir folds his hands. "Gondor has strength. Her people stood against Mordor when all others had fallen. We have allies in Rohan and beyond. The line of stewards has endured for nearly 1,000 years, a line that was meant to end," says a lord from Peлагir, his beard silver, his eyes sharp. The oath of the stewards was clear, to hold the rule in the name of the king until he returns. If he has come and refused, what then? Are we to twist words to suit ourselves? Another voice from a younger man in black and silver. Perhaps the king of whom the prophecy spoke has not yet come. Perhaps this was a test, and the true heir will yet appear. Imrahil's gaze is level. The sword was reforged. The hands that healed were his. If Aragorn, son of Arathorn, was not the king foretold, then the prophecies are emptier than the coffers of Osgiliath. A faint, bitter laugh runs around the table, quickly stifled. Faramir listens, feeling the pressure build like a storm. He had not sought this. He had knelt before Aragorn with a willing heart, ready to surrender the white rod. Now he finds it heavier in his hand than ever it was in his father's. Aragorn will not abandon us, he says at last. He has pledged his aid. He will remain as captain of the host. He will see to the north, and we will govern as best we may in council. Together, the Lord of Pelargir leans forward. And when he is gone, when he returns to the north, to his wandering folk and his elven bride, will Gondor be ruled from the wilds, or will we stand alone, with no king, no heir, and a steward's line that has already come near to ruin? A shadow crosses Faramir's face at the mention of his father. My line is not yet ended, but it is thin, the man replies, not unkindly. You are young, and war has taken much. There is no guarantee. Gondor cannot rest her fate on the hope that you will have sons before the next storm breaks. Imrahil raises a hand. Enough. The decision for now is made. Aragorn will not be king. We cannot force him to take what he refuses. What we can do is ensure that Gondor does not tear herself apart over a crown that has no head. For the present, let the steward rule with a council of lords. We will see what the days bring. What the days bring, far to the south, is a different fire. In the harbors of Umbar, the black ships of the corsairs lie half-burned and broken, remnants of the fleet Aragorn took and turned against Sauron. The smell of pitch and salt and old blood hangs heavy in the narrow streets. The city is restless, its people uncertain. A man stands upon a balcony overlooking the inner harbor, the wind tugging at his dark cloak. His face is lean, his eyes hard. He bears scars from a battle upon the Anduin that he does not speak of. He is called Zahir, once a lesser captain among the corsairs, now something more. Behind him, in the cool shade of the chamber, a woman watches, veiled in crimson silk. Her eyes are sharp as a knife's edge. Her name is Lithir, and she has come from the south, from the courts of Harad, where the red serpent still coils. You see, Zahir says, not turning, the west is not as strong as they would have us think. Their would-be king refuses his crown. Their white city is ruled by a young man whose father burned himself in madness. They are divided. Lithir's voice is soft, sibilant. You have proof of this? He smiles without mirth. Gondor's ships carry more than grain and timber. Men talk. Coin loosens tongues. And there are those within Minas Tirith who are not pleased with a ranger from the north claiming their loyalty, even if he will not claim their throne. She steps closer, the scent of foreign spices following her. Then the time of the south has not yet passed. Sauron is gone, but his enemies are not united. Harad bleeds, Umbar smolders, but we are not broken. If Gondor falters, we may yet shape the world to our will. Zahir turns at last, his eyes glinting. We will not rush. Let them believe themselves safe. Let their allies return home, their armies disband. Let their would-be king wander north. Then we will see how strong their steward truly is. In Minas Tirith, The white city begins to breathe again. The dead are burned or buried, the walls mended, the great gate reforged. The lower circles ring with hammers and the murmur of voices. Children who have only known war chase each other through alleys, their laughter thin but real. Aragorn walks among the people, not as a king, but as a healer. In the houses of healing, he moves from bed to bed, his hands cool and steady. He tends to a boy whose leg was crushed beneath a fallen stone, to a woman with burns from the siege fires, to a Rohirrim rider whose arm will never be whole. He listens to their stories. He speaks little, but when he does, there is comfort in his words. Éowyn watches him with unreadable eyes. Her own arm is still bound from the blow of the Witch King, but she moves with restless energy, helping where she can, refusing to sit idle. She had thought once that she loved this man, that she might become a queen beside him, and so escape the cage of her life. Now he will not be king, and she finds that what stirs in her is not disappointment, but something more complicated. "You fear yourself," she says to him one evening, as the sun bleeds red over the Pelennor. They stand upon a balcony that overlooks the fields where she slew the Lord of the Nazgul, where the grass is still scorched in a great black ring. Aragorn's gaze is distant. "I do. Yet you do not fear the enemy who is gone, nor the battles that remain. Only the crown." He smiles faintly. "I fear what I might become if I took it. I have walked long in the wild, free of any throne. I know my own pride, Lady Éowyn. I know how easily good intentions can become tyranny, when one believes that one alone knows what is best." She studies him. "Is it not also pride to refuse a burden that others deem you fit to bear?" He turns to her, and for a moment there is something almost like anger in his eyes, though it is not directed at her. "Would you have me take it because others wish it, when my heart warns me against it? Would you have another Denethor upon that seat, another man devoured by fear of losing what he holds?" She does not look away. "I would have someone there who will not abandon Gondor when the darkness gathers again." The words hang between them. He flinches slightly. "I will not abandon Gondor," he says. "I will stand in her defense as long as I live, but I will not bind her fate to mine. If I fall, let her stand. If I falter, let her correct her course. A king's fall drags all down with him. A steward can be replaced." Éowyn considers this, feeling the wind tug at her hair. "Perhaps," she says, "you are right, or perhaps you are wrong, and your refusal will cost more than your acceptance ever could. I do not know. I am no queen, and I never will be." Her voice is steady, but there is a shadow in it. Aragorn hears it. "You will find your own path," he says, "one that is not bound to the fate of any king." She smiles, a small, wry thing. "Then perhaps we are alike, in that at least." In the high tower, Gandalf the White stands upon the balcony of the steward's house, his staff in his hand, and watches the city below. He is troubled. He had seen many possible paths when he set foot in Middle-earth. He had known that the line of kings might fail, that the West might fall. He had not foreseen, not clearly, that the king would come and refuse his crown. He feels faintly the stirring of old powers in the east and south, seeking the void left by Sauron's fall. He hears whispers of unrest among the lords of Gondor, of merchants angry at new levies, of soldiers uncertain whom they truly serve. Faramir joins him, moving with quiet steps. "You disapprove," the steward says. Gandalf glances at him. "I disapprove of many things, Faramir, son of Denethor." That does not mean they are all wrong, but this choice, it is dangerous. Faramir leans on the stone parapet, looking out. The wind is cool on his face. Aragorn is not Denethor. His refusal does not spring from pride, but from fear of pride. Is that not wisdom? It may be, Gandalf says. Or it may be a different kind of pride, more subtle and more perilous. To think that one's own judgment of oneself is truer than the needs of the world. The Valar do not often set such chances before men twice. A returned king is not a small thing to cast aside. Faramir is silent for a time. Below, a group of children run, chasing a dog through the square, their laughter faint but clear. If I ask him again, Faramir says quietly, and he still refuses, what then? Am I to force a crown upon his head? To declare him king against his will? Gandalf snorts softly. You would not succeed. He is as stubborn as any of your line and more. No, we cannot compel him. We can only watch and mend what we can, and hope that his path does not lead us all to ruin. Do you think it will? Gandalf does not answer at once. He looks eastward, beyond the ruined land of Mordor, where the horizon is hazy and uncertain. I think, he says slowly, that when a great power is refused, it does not vanish. It goes elsewhere. It finds other hands, other shapes. Aragorn will not be king. Very well. Then power in Gondor will flow into other channels. Some may be good, some less so. Far away, in the green hills of the Shire, Samwise Gamgee pauses in the middle of a furrow, his hands in the earth. The sky above Hobbiton is clear, the air sweet with the scent of turned soil and growing things. The war is a tale from far away, a shadow that has passed. Yet Sam feels, for a moment, a strange unease, like a cloud crossing the sun. He straightens, wiping his hands on his trousers, and looks toward the distant south, though he cannot see beyond the green slopes. "Mr. Frodo," he calls, half without thinking. Frodo, sitting on a bench outside Bag End with a book in his lap, looks up. "Yes, Sam?" Sam hesitates. "Nothing, really. Just wondered if you felt anything odd." Frodo studies him, then glances southward, his gray eyes distant. His hand strays unconsciously to his breast, where a small white gem lies hidden beneath his shirt. "There is always something odd, Sam," he says quietly. "The world is not as it was, but it will take time for us to see how." Sam nods slowly. "As long as it leaves the Shire in peace, I will not complain." He returns to his work. Frodo looks down at his book, but his thoughts are far away, in a white city where a crown lies waiting. Aragorn does not leave Minas Tirith at once. There are treaties to be made, borders to be redrawn, captives to be freed or judged. King Éomer of Rohan rides often to the city, and the two men speak long into the night about the future of their peoples. Legolas and Gimli wander the ruins of the Pelennor, speaking of trees and stone and the rebuilding that must be done. In these days, a pattern begins to form, subtle and dangerous. When a dispute arises between lords, they come to Faramir, as is proper. But many also seek Aragorn's counsel. When a captain is to be chosen for a new garrison, Faramir's word is law, but men listen closely to see whether Aragorn approves. When a merchant from Pelargir complains of tariffs, he grumbles about the steward, but speaks with respect of the northern chieftain who led the dead to their doom. The city whispers of two powers, one with the rod, one with the sword. Faramir is not blind to this. One evening, he goes to Aragorn's chambers in the citadel. The room is simple, almost austere, furnished more like a ranger's lodge than a lord's quarters. A map of Middle-earth, lies unrolled upon the table, weighted at the corners by stones. Aragorn stands over it, his brow furrowed. "Lord Steward," he says as Faramir enters, and there is a trace of formality in his tone that was not there before. Faramir closes the door behind him. "Aragorn, I would speak with you not as steward to captain, but as one man to another." Aragorn gestures to a chair. "Then sit, and let us speak so." Faramir does not sit. He steps closer to the table, his gaze on the map. "The lords come to you," he says. "They speak your name in the streets. They look to you as if you were already king, though you have refused the crown." Aragorn's jaw tightens. "I cannot prevent them from seeking my counsel." "No," Faramir says, "but you can prevent them from seeing you as an alternative to me." There is a moment of silence. "You fear division," Aragorn says. "I fear that Gondor will be pulled in two directions," Faramir replies. "That men will say, 'Why listen to the steward when the true Lord of the West walks among us?' You do not wish to be king, but your very presence makes you a rival to any who rule in your stead." Aragorn looks at him, and in his eyes there is both respect and sorrow. "What do you ask of me, Faramir?" "Leave," Faramir says, and the word costs him. "Go north, rebuild your own kingdom if you must, or wander in the wild. But do not linger here as a shadow king. It will tear Gondor apart." Aragorn's fingers curl on the edge of the table. He looks down at the map, at the small white tower that marks Minas Tirith. "I gave my word," he says. "I said I would not abandon this city." "I do not ask you to abandon her," Faramir says. "Send captains, send aid when you can. Come in times of great need, but do not stand in my hall day by day, drawing men's loyalties away without meaning to. If you will not be king, then be absent." The words are harsh, but his voice is not. There is no anger in it, only a weary honesty. Aragorn closes his eyes for a moment. He sees again the white tree, dead and bare. He hears again the cheers of the people when he first rode through the city, bearing the banner that Arwen wove. He feels the pull of this place, of what might have been. "I had thought to stay until things were more settled," he says, "until your rule was secure." Faramir smiles faintly. "My rule will never be secure while you are here. Not because of anything you do, but because of what you are. You are Isildur's heir. You are the man who passed through the paths of the dead and lived. You are the one whose hands brought healing. You cannot be just a captain in this city." Aragorn opens his eyes. "If I go, there will be those who say I fled responsibility. There will be those who say that whatever you do," Faramir replies, "you cannot live by the tongues of men. Nor can I. We must each bear the burden we have chosen." Aragorn studies him. "You are your father's son," he says softly. Faramir's face tightens, but Aragorn continues, "But you are not your father." Denethor would never have spoken so. He would have clung to his power until it destroyed him. You are willing to risk much for Gondor's sake, more perhaps than I." Faramir looks away, uncomfortable. "Will you go then?" Aragorn is silent for a long time. At last he nods. "Soon," he says, "I will speak with Eomer, with Imrahil. I will set in order what I can. Then I will take my kinsmen and go north to see what remains of Arnor. Gondor must stand on her own feet, if she is to stand at all. When the day of his departure comes, the city gathers again. They line the streets from the great gate to the sixth circle, watching as Aragorn and his small company ride out. Legolas is at his side, and Gimli, and the sons of Elrond, and a dozen Dunedain of the north. The banner of the White Tree and the Seven Stars is furled, not flown. There are no trumpets, no garlands. The mood is subdued, uncertain. Some cry out blessings, some turn away, muttering that a true king would not leave so soon. Some watch in silence, faces unreadable. On a balcony high above, Éowyn stands beside Faramir. Her hand rests lightly on his arm. She watches Aragorn ride past, his face set, his eyes on the road ahead. Will he return? She asks. Perhaps, Faramir says, in times of great need, or when his heart draws him. But I think his path lies elsewhere now. Éowyn nods. Then so does ours. Gandalf watches too, from the shadow of a pillar. His face is grave. As Aragorn passes beneath the gate, he lifts his gaze to the White Tower. For a moment, his eyes meet Gandalf's across the distance. There is a question there, and an unspoken farewell. Gandalf inclines his head, just a fraction. Go, that look says. The world will not wait for you. Beyond the Ramas Ekor, on the road that leads north, Aragorn does not look back. The land changes as they ride. They pass through Anorion, where the trees are still blackened from the passage of war. Then through the gap of Rohan, where Éomer's riders escort them for a time, laughing and singing in their harsh tongue. They cross the plains of Enedwaith, bleak and windswept, where old stones jut from the earth like broken teeth. At night, under the stars, the Dunedain speak softly of the north, of ruined Fornost and empty Anúminas, of Bree and the Shire, of lonely watchtowers and long, quiet winters. Aragorn listens, but his thoughts often drift southward, to a white city under a mountain, to a crown he did not take. In Gondor, the first cracks appear. They are small at first, hairline fractures in the stone of the realm. A dispute in Lebanon over land rights between two ancient families turns violent. In the past, the fear of the king's justice might have restrained them. Now, each claims that the steward favors the other, and they begin to gather armed men. In Pelargir, merchants grumble that the new levies Faramir has imposed to rebuild the fleet are too heavy. They remember the days when Denethor squeezed them, but at least then they had believed a king might come to ease their burden. Now they see only a young man with no heir, no crown, and no guarantee. In the eastern marches of Ithilien, a band of former soldiers, restless and without work, turn to banditry. They raid caravans from Khand and Rhûn, sometimes by mistake those from Gondor itself. When Faramir sends men to bring them to justice, they melt into the woods. Rumors begin to spread. They say that the steward is weak, that he listens too much to the elves, to Gandalf, that he will sell Gondor's birthright to strange northern lords, that he will tax the cities into hunger while he plants flowers in Ithilien. More dangerous still, other rumors whisper of a different savior. In taverns and barracks, men speak of a man in the south, a captain of Umbar who has sworn to avenge his people and stand against Gondor's hypocrisy. They say he fights not for Sauron, but for the freedom of men from the yoke of the White City. His name is Zahir. He moves carefully. He does not yet sail up the Anduin with black sails. He begins instead with small strikes. A Gondorian patrol ambushed near the mouth of the river. A trading ship from Dol Amroth taken, and its crew set adrift in a small boat, alive but shaken. He sends emissaries to Harad, to Khand, to the Easterling tribes. He speaks of a Gondor without a king, of a steward's line weakened by madness and war. He offers alliance, coin, and the promise that this time the South will not be used as a tool of a Dark Lord, but will stand as a power in its own right. Some listen, some do not, but slowly a network begins to form. In Minas Tirith, Faramir feels the pressure mounting. He spends long hours in council, longer still poring over ledgers and maps. He rides to Lebanon to settle the land dispute himself, sitting with both families until they reach a grudging compromise. He travels to Pelargir to speak with the merchants, explaining the need for a strong fleet, promising that the levies will be eased when the danger passes. He returns to the city exhausted, but he does not show it. Éowyn sees it, though. At night, when he finally lays aside the white rod and the weight of the day, she sits with him by the small fire in their chambers. The room is simpler than the steward's house once was. Stripped of some of Denethor's cold grandeur, there are flowers from Ithilien on the table, their scent a reminder of green places. "You cannot mend every quarrel yourself," she says gently. "You cannot be in all places at once." "I must," he replies. "There is no king to bear the greater part. The lords test me, the merchants test me, the people watch me. If I falter now, they will say that Denethor's younger son was never fit to rule." She reaches for his hand. "You are not your father. You need not burn yourself to prove your worth." He flinches at the word burn, then laughs softly, bitterly. "I hope not." Gandalf visits less often now. He feels the pull of the West, of the straight road that waits. His work in Middle-earth is largely done, or so he believes. Yet he lingers, troubled by the shape of things. One evening, he and Faramir walk in the court of the fountain. The white tree stands there still, dead and bare. No sapling has yet been found, for in this path Aragorn did not walk the high snows of Mindalluin with the crown upon his brow and hope in his heart. "Do you ever think," Faramir asks, "what might have been had Aragorn taken the crown?" Gandalf's eyes rest on the dead tree. Often. Would Gondor be stronger? Or would we face different troubles? Gandalf smiles thinly, both perhaps. A king brings unity, but also envy. His line would have to prove itself, as yours must. Yet I think, yes, the South would think twice before testing a realm with a crowned king and an elven queen at his side. "Do you blame him?" Faramir asks. "For refusing?" Gandalf shakes his head. "No, I understand his fear. He has seen much in his long years. He has seen how power corrupts. Yet I fear that in fleeing one danger, he has run toward another." He turns to Faramir. "Do you blame him?" Faramir looks away. "Sometimes, in the small hours of the night, when I feel the weight of the city on my shoulders, then I remember that he could have borne this and chose not to. But in the light of day, no, he is who he is. I would not have him be otherwise, for then he would not be the man who healed me." Gandalf nods slowly. "You are wiser than your years, steward of Gondor." "Not wise enough," Faramir says, "not for what is coming. What is coming first shows itself in a whisper from the south. A rider arrives in Minas Tirith, his horse lathered and stumbling. He bears the colors of Dol Amroth, but his cloak is torn, his face gray with dust and fear. Faramir meets him in the great hall. "What news from the sea?" the steward asks. The rider bows, swaying. "My lord, a fleet, black sails, but not of the enemy, the flag of Umbar, and others besides. They fell upon our ships near the mouths of the Anduin. 3 of ours are sunk, 2 taken. Lord Imrahil lives, but he is hard-pressed. The corsairs, they are not as they were. They fight with discipline, with purpose. They call the name of a captain, Zahir. The name runs through the hall like a chill wind." Gandalf, standing at Faramir's right, stiffens. "So," he murmurs, "the South has found its champion, Faramir's." Mind races. He thinks of the half-rebuilt fleet, of the levies he has already imposed, of the merchants' anger. He thinks of Pelargir, vulnerable at the river's mouth. Send word to Dol Amroth, he says. Tell Imrahil to hold if he can, to withdraw if he must. We will send aid. He turns to a captain. How many ships can we spare from the Anduin? Too few, the man says. We have barely enough to guard the river traffic as it is. If we strip them, the raiders in Ithilien will grow bold, and trade from the east will falter. Faramir feels the familiar tightening in his chest. Every choice now is a loss, every gain bought with a greater risk. Send what we can, he says, and send riders to Rohan. We may need their aid, though the sea is not their field. Gandalf watches him, then speaks softly. There is another you could call. Faramir's jaw clenches. Aragorn. He knows these waters, Gandalf says. He has faced the Corsairs before. His name alone might give the South pause. Faramir closes his eyes for a moment. He sees Aragorn riding away beneath the White Gate. He hears his own words. If you will not be king, then be absent. He has his own realm to tend, Faramir says. I will not call him back for every storm. Gondor must learn to stand without him. Gandalf's gaze is steady. Are you certain this is a storm you can weather alone? No, Faramir says, but I am certain that if I call him now, I will call him again and again until Gondor has two rulers in truth, if not in name. That will break us as surely as any fleet. Gandalf sighs. You bear a hard burden, Faramir. So did he, Faramir replies. He chose his path. I must walk mine. In the north, Aragorn receives no summons. He stands upon the broken walls of Fornost, the wind cold from the mountains, and looks out over the empty lands of Arnor. The ruins are vast, their stones scattered and overgrown. Once, kings ruled here. Now, only the wind and the crows keep watch. The Dunedain move among the fallen halls, their voices echoing faintly. They speak of rebuilding, of gathering the scattered folk of the north under one banner. They look to Aragorn with expectation. You could make this a kingdom again, Halbarad's nephew says, a young man with his uncle's eyes. Not as it was, perhaps, but something new. A haven in the north, a partner to Gondor. Aragorn's hand rests on the hilt of Anduril. Perhaps, he says, but a kingdom is not made in a year, nor in 10. It will take time, patience, and much labor, and a king, the young man says. Aragorn smiles without humor. I thought we had agreed that I am no king. Not in Gondor, the man replies. But here, who else is there? Aragorn does not answer. At night, in the ruins of Annuminus, by the shores of Lake Nenuial, he dreams. He dreams of Minas Tirith burning. He sees the white tree wreathed in flame, its dead branches crackling. He hears screams in the streets, the clash of steel, the roar of fires. He sees banners of black and scarlet flying from the battlements, strained sigils beside the white tower. He wakes with his heart pounding. Beside him, Arwen stirs. She had come to him in the north, choosing mortality for his sake, though he had warned her that he would not be king. She had smiled and said that she loved the man, not the crown. Yet there are nights when he sees a shadow in her eyes, a question unasked. What did you see? She whispers now. He hesitates, then speaks. Gondor, in flames. She is silent for a time. Do you think it is only a dream? No, he says. I think it is a warning. Then you should go, she says softly. He looks at her in the dim light. And leave you so soon after you have chosen this life? She smiles sadly. I chose a man who would go where he is needed, not one who would sit idle while cities burn. If Gondor falls because you are here, will you be able to bear it? Will I? He closes his eyes. He sees again the Hall of the Kings, the untouched crown. He hears Faramir's voice. "If you will not be king, then be absent." "I gave him my word," Aragorn says, "that I would not overshadow his rule. Arwen's hand finds his. You gave Gondor your life long ago when you chose this path. Words are important, Estelle, but so are lives. If the choice is between Faramir's pride and Gondor's survival." He pulls his hand away, not in anger, but in anguish. "It is not his pride, it is mine. I refused that crown because I feared what it would do to me. If I now rush back, whenever Gondor stumbles, am I not still binding her fate to mine in another way? I do not know how to be half a king." Arwen watches him, her eyes deep and old. Then perhaps that is the heart of it. You cannot be half a king. You must choose fully and finally whether you will be one at all. He does not answer. In Gondor, the war in the south intensifies. Zahir's fleet grows bolder. They strike not only at ships, but at coastal villages, at outlying forts. They do not seek to conquer, yet they seek to bleed, to undermine confidence, to show that Gondor cannot protect her own. In Dol Amroth, Imrahil fights with all his skill and courage, but his ships are outnumbered. He sends more pleas to Minas Tirith, his messages increasingly urgent. Faramir responds as best he can. He diverts more coin to the navy, angers more merchants, tightens belts in the city. He sends young men to the sea who would rather till fields. Grumbling grows. In the markets of the second circle, a man named Caranil begins to speak. He is a minor noble from Losernak, clever with words, bitter that his family's lands were ravaged in the war and that he has received little recompense. He gathers discontented merchants, restless veterans, and ambitious lesser lords around him. He speaks of the glory of Gondor, of the days when kings ruled and the White City was feared and respected. Now, he says, standing on a crate in a crowded square, we are ruled by a steward who plants gardens while our ships burn. We have no king, no clear line of succession. If Faramir falls, who will lead us? Will we become a republic ruled by bickering lords? Will Rohan ride in and take our lands? Or will some northern wanderer return to claim what he once refused? The crowd murmurs. What do you propose? Someone calls. Caranil spreads his hands. I propose that Gondor must have a king. If Isildur's heir will not take the crown, then we must look elsewhere. There are other lines, other claims. The blood of Numenor runs in more than one family, and if no man with such blood will step forward, then let Gondor choose her own king from among her own sons. It is treason in all but name. Yet the word king still holds magic. Men listen. Some scoff. Some nod thoughtfully. Word of Caranil's speeches reaches the citadel. Faramir summons him. They meet in a small chamber, not the great hall. Faramir sits at a plain table, no throne behind him. Caranil enters with a confident stride, bowing just enough to be polite, not enough to be humble. Lord Steward, he says. Lord Caranil, Faramir replies. You have been busy. Caranil smiles. I speak only what men already think. You speak of kings, Faramir says, in a realm where the rightful heir refused the crown. Rightful? Caranil raises an eyebrow. By ancient law, perhaps, but law is made by men, and men can change it. If a man refuses a gift, does it remain his by right? Or does it pass to another who will accept it? Faramir's gaze is steady. You tread dangerous ground, dangerous times, Caranil replies. Our ships burn, our borders are tested, the south gathers strength, and we are led by a man whose father died in madness, who has no sons, and who clings to the counsel of elves and wizards. Forgive me, my lord, but some of us wonder if Gondor deserves better. Faramir feels the old wound of his father's scorn, the familiar sting of being found wanting. He masters it. "Do you seek the crown for yourself?" he asks. Caranil laughs. "I am not so foolish. I seek only to open men's eyes. If a king should arise, one who truly loves Gondor and will put her above all, then I would gladly bend the knee. Until then I will speak." Faramir leans back. "You have that right, for now. But know this, Lord Caranil, Gondor will not be ruled by those who stir unrest for their own gain. If your words lead to blood in the streets, you will answer for it." Caranil's smile fades just a little. "Is that a threat, my lord?" "It is a warning," Faramir says, "from one who has seen what fire does when men play with it." Caranil bows again, slightly lower this time. "Then I will take care not to be burned." He leaves. Faramir watches him go, knowing that he has not stopped anything, only delayed it. In Umbar, Zahir receives a visitor. She comes veiled as before, but this time she wears a cloak of deep blue, embroidered with stars. When she lifts her veil, Zahir sees that her eyes are tired, though her bearing is still proud. "Lady Lithir," he says. "To what do I owe this honor?" Lithir sits, accepting a cup of spiced wine. "I bring news from Harad, and a warning." He raises an eyebrow. "The South sends warnings now?" She smiles thinly. "We have learned from your northern foes. There is more power in a well-timed word than in 100 swords." She leans forward. Gondor falters. "Your strikes have wounded her. Her steward is stretched thin. But do not be deceived. She is not yet broken. If you push too hard, too fast, you will unite her against you. The Rohirrim will ride, the Dunedain of the north may return, and there are other powers that do not sleep." Zahir frowns. "You counsel caution? I thought you came to urge me on. I come to tell you that there is another fire kindling within the White City," Lithir says. "A fire of discontent, of ambition. There are those within Gondor who would rather see the steward fall, even if it means welcoming a new power. If you are clever, you can feed that fire instead of trying to burn the city from without." "You suggest alliance with traitors?" Zahir says. "I suggest that not all enemies must be met with steel," Lithir replies. "Some can be turned, some can be used. There are men in Minas Tirith who speak of kings. Find them, make them your tools, let Gondor tear herself apart, and you will only need to sweep up the pieces." Zahir's eyes narrow. "You speak as if you have names." Lithir smiles. "I have ears in many places. There is a lord named Caranil, for instance. In Minas Tirith, Caranil receives a letter. It comes by way of Pelagir, carried by a merchant whose eyes slide away when questioned too closely. The seal is unfamiliar, a coiled serpent around a star. Caranil breaks it in private, in a room with thick curtains and a door that locks. The letter is written in a fine flowing hand. Lord Caranil of Lossarnac, word of your speeches has reached ears far beyond the White City. There are those in the south who admire your courage, your love for Gondor, and your desire to see her ruled by one worthy of her. We share a common enemy, those who would keep Gondor weak, ruled by stewards and elves and distant wanderers, while her people suffer. We do not wish to see your White City burn. We wish to see it free, strong, and allied with those who have long been scorned. If you would speak further of the future of Gondor, send a trusted man to Pelagir, to the Tavern of the Broken Oar. He will find a friend there. In hope of a new dawn, El Caranil reads the letter twice. He knows what it implies. He knows that to answer it is treason. He also knows that the path he has already chosen leads toward treason, whether he steps carefully or not. He thinks of his ruined lands, of friends lost in the war, of a steward who plants flowers while ships burn, of a king who would not be king. He burns the letter in his hearth, watching the flames curl around the paper. Then he calls for a trusted man. The first true blood within Minas Tirith is spilled on a rain-slick street in the third circle. Two men argue outside a tavern, voices raised. One wears the badge of a merchant guild, the other the plain cloak of a veteran soldier. Their words are about coin, about a debt unpaid, but beneath them runs a deeper current. You speak as if the steward has wronged you, the soldier says, his hand on his cup. He has done his best in dark days. His best? The merchant sneers. His best is to tax us until we can barely feed our families, while he rides off to his pretty woods with his northern lady. We need a king, not a gardener, a king who is not here, the soldier snaps. Or would you have us pull some noble from Lossernach and call him king because he has a loud voice? The merchant's eyes flash. Better a man of Gondor than a half-elf from the north who runs away when the work is hard. The soldier's fist slams into his jaw before either quite knows what is happening. The fight spills into the street. Others join in, some for one side, some for the other, some for the joy of fighting. Names are shouted: Faramir, Aragorn, Caranil. Someone draws a knife. By the time the city guard arrives, one man is dead, his blood mingling with the rain. Faramir hears of it that night. He sits in his chamber, the report in his hand, the candlelight flickering. Éowyn stands by the window, her face pale. It was only a brawl, she says. Men fight in taverns. They always have. It was not only a brawl, Faramir replies. They shouted names. They fought over who should rule. The city is beginning to divide, Éowyn, over me, over Aragorn, over men like Caranil. This is how civil wars begin. She crosses to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Then stop it before it grows. How? He asks. And there is rawness in his voice. Do I arrest Caranil and make a martyr of him? Do I ban the name of Aragorn from men's lips? Do I silence all dissent and become the tyrant they fear? She has no easy answer. In the north, the news reaches Aragorn slowly. A rider from Rohan arrives in Anúminas, bearing tidings from the south. Aragorn reads the letter by the light of a small fire. Zahir, corsairs. Dol Amroth under siege. Caranil's speeches, blood in the streets. He feels the walls of the ruined hall close in. Halbarad's nephew watches him. Will you go? Aragorn does not answer at once. He hears again Faramir's voice. If you will not be king, then be absent. He hears Arwen's. If Gondor falls because you are here, will you be able to bear it? He looks at the map spread on the table. The north is vast, empty, in need of his hand. The south burns. He cannot be in both places. At last, he speaks. I will go, he says, for a time. I will see what aid I can bring, but I will not stay. Gondor must still stand on her own. I cannot unmake the choice I have made. He gathers a small company. The Dunedain, Legolas, Gimli. Arwen watches him prepare, her face composed, her eyes dark. Will you return? She asks. If I can, he says. And if you cannot? She says. He has no answer. They ride south, swift and silent, through lands that are beginning to feel the stirrings of a new age. In Bree, men speak of strange ships on the southern seas. In Tharbad, traders complain of higher tolls on the Anduin. In Rohan, Éomer greets Aragorn with a fierce embrace and a frown. You come at a hard time, Éomer says. The south bites at Gondor, and within her walls men mutter of kings and stewards. I have sent riders to aid Faramir, but my own borders must be watched. There are whispers of wolves in the east, of Easterlings on the move. Aragorn nods. The world does not rest. It never has, Eomer says. But we thought for a brief time that it might. Foolish perhaps, they ride together to the borders of Gondor. There, Aragorn goes on ahead, with only his closest companions to enter Minas Tirith by the Lesser Gate, unannounced. The city feels different. The scars of war are less visible, the walls are mended, the markets fuller. Yet there is a tension in the air, like the heaviness before a storm. Guards at the gate look more suspicious, more weary. Banners in the streets bear not only the white tree, but also the emblems of various lords, more prominent than before. As Aragorn walks through the lower circles, cloaked and hooded, he hears snatches of conversation. Faramir raised the levy again. My brother says they will have to sell the farm. Aragorn would not have left us. A true king would stand by his people. Aragorn did leave. He ran back to his northern ruins. At least Faramir stayed. Caranil says we must choose our own king. Why should we wait for one who does not want us? He feels each word like a stone. In the citadel, Faramir greets him with a mixture of relief and strain. Aragorn, he says, and for a moment the formality falls away. You came. I heard of your troubles, Aragorn replies. I could not stay away and do nothing. Gandalf is there too, his eyes sharp. The South bites deeper every year, he says. Zahir is no common corsair. He is a leader with a vision. He speaks of freeing men from the shadow of the West. Many listen. I will sail against him, Aragorn says at once. I know his kind. I have fought him before, or men like him. Give me ships, and I will break his fleet or die in the attempt. Faramir hesitates. Your name on the sea would hearten our men, but your presence here, it stirs things. Caranil and his like speak more boldly when you are in the city. I did not come to take your throne, Aragorn says more sharply than he intends. I know, Faramir says, but there are those who would give it to you, whether you want it or not. And there are those who would use your refusal as a weapon against me. Aragorn draws a slow breath. Then, I will not linger. I will take ship at Pelargir, strike at Umbar, and return north. Gandalf raises an eyebrow. You think this can be solved with one bold stroke? You think you can cut away the rot with a single sword blow? Aragorn meets his gaze. No, but I can buy you time. Time to mend what I cannot. Faramir nods slowly. Very well. Take what ships we can spare. Imrahil will be glad of your aid. But know this, Aragorn, when you return, things may not be as you left them. Gondor is changing, whether we will it or no. Aragorn leaves Minas Tirith again, this time with a fleet. At Pelargir, he meets Imrahil on the quays. The prince of Dol Amroth is thinner than before, his hair more gray, his eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. You come like Arendil in the tales, Imrahil says, a star in dark waters. I am no star, Aragorn replies, only a man with a ship and a sword. Tell me of Zahir. They speak long into the night, over maps and cups of strong wine. Zahir's tactics are clever. Hitandrin strikes, feints, feigned retreats. He avoids full engagement unless he holds the advantage. His men are fiercely loyal. He speaks to them of honor, Imrahil says, of fighting for their own lands, not for a dark lord. He says Gondor has no right to her coastal holdings, that we are invaders as much as Sauron ever was. Aragorn's jaw tightens. And do you believe there is no truth in his words? Imrahil hesitates. We have held these coasts for long ages. But yes, once they were other men's lands. The world is built on old conquests. If we begin to unravel them now, where will it end? In fire, Aragorn says quietly. Unless we find another way, they sail. The battle that follows, off the coast of Umbar, is fierce and bloody. Black ships clash with white, arrows darken the sky, firepots burst upon decks. Aragorn stands at the prow of his flagship, Anduril in hand, his cloak whipping in the wind. He moves like a man born to this, his commands precise, his courage unshaken. Zahir watches from his own deck, a grim smile on his face. So, he murmurs. The would-be king returns to the sea. He does not seek a duel. He is no fool. He orders a feigned retreat, drawing some of the Gondorian ships into a trap among hidden shoals. 2 of Imrahil's ships run aground, easy prey for boarding parties. Aragorn sees the danger and turns his own ship to aid them. Against Imrahil's shouted warning, for a moment, amid the smoke and chaos, Aragorn stands upon the deck with Zahir's flagship in sight, close enough that he can see the corsair captain's face. Their eyes meet across the water. Zahir raises a hand in mocking salute. Then a firepot arcs through the air, thrown from an unseen small craft. It lands upon Aragorn's deck, shattering. Flames roar up, hungry for tar and wood. "Water!" Aragorn shouts. "Buckets! Cut that line!" Men scramble, some leap into the sea. The ship groans, fire racing along the rail. Gimli curses, hacking at burning ropes with his axe. Legolas moves with impossible grace, kicking flaming debris into the water, his hair singed. For a moment, it seems they will lose the ship. Then a wave, summoned by no power but chance and wind, crashes over the side, dousing part of the fire. Men seize the moment, beating out the remaining flames with cloaks and bare hands. When the smoke clears, Zahir's flagship is gone, vanished into the haze with several of his ships. The battle ends in a bloody stalemate, losses on both sides, no clear victor. On the charred deck, Aragorn leans on the rail, his face blackened, his eyes hard. He is dangerous, he says. He learns. He will be back. Imrahil, on the deck of his own, battered ship, nods grimly, and we have no more ships to lose. They limp back to Pelargir, bearing their wounded and their dead. In Minas Tirith, the news of the battle spreads. Some call it a victory, that Zahir was driven off. Others call it a failure, that he was not destroyed. Caranil and his circle seize upon it. "See," Caranil says in a private gathering, "even with the northern captain's aid, we cannot crush the south. Our enemies grow bold while we bicker over gardens. Gondor needs a strong hand, a king who will not flinch from hard choices." One of his companions leans in, and where will we find such a king? Aragorn will not take the crown, Faramir will not claim it. Will you? Caranil smiles, slow and calculating. "I am not so presumptuous. But there are others. There are old lines, old claims. Did you know that in Lebanon there is a family that traces its descent back to a younger son of Anarion? Forgotten by most, but the blood is there, or so they say." "You would put forward a puppet?" someone asks. "A symbol," Caranil replies, "a banner for men to gather under. The true power will be in the council, in the hands of those who know how to wield it. Gondor has always been ruled as much by her lords as by her kings. They drink to that in quiet toasts." In the citadel, Faramir feels the ground shifting. He hears of Caranil's gatherings, though not their full content. He hears of merchants refusing to pay new levies, of minor lords dragging their feet in sending men to the coasts. He hears of whispers that perhaps the time has come to reconsider the question of the crown. He stands again in the hall of the kings, before the empty throne. The crown still lies upon its sable cushion, untouched. dust has begun to gather on the black cloth, a faint gray film. Gandalf joins him, his footsteps soft. "The crown waits," the wizard says. "For whom?" Faramir asks. "For whom indeed?" Gandalf replies. "For Aragorn, if he will ever return and set aside his fear. For some other heir, if such can be found. Or perhaps for no one, if Gondor chooses another path." Faramir's gaze is fixed on the crown. There is another possibility. Gandalf looks at him sharply. "No," Faramir smiles faintly. "I have no wish to be king. I have no blood of Elendil. I am a steward's son, not a king's. But if Gondor tears herself apart over this empty seat, is it not better that someone sit upon it? Even if only to say, 'Enough'? Do you think the lords would accept you as king?" Gandalf asks. "Some might. Others would say, 'You usurp what was held in trust.' They would say Denethor's son has broken the oath of the stewards. They would call you traitor to your own line. They call me worse already," Faramir says. "In their cups, in their halls, I hear the whispers. They say I am soft, too gentle, more scholar than lord. They say I am swayed by elves, by wizards, by a northern wanderer who cannot choose his own mind. If I am to be cursed, let it be for something I have done, not for what I am." Gandalf's eyes soften. "You are weary?" "I am," Faramir says simply. "I am tired of being the man between Denethor and Aragorn, between east and west, between war and peace. Perhaps a king would find this easier, or perhaps he would burn faster," Gandalf says. "You think a crown would ease your burden? It would double it, triple, and it would not mend the divisions. Those who hate you as steward will hate you more as king. Those who cling to the old oaths will call you oath breaker." "And Aragorn? What then?" Faramir looks away. "He refused. He cannot blame me if I act. He can," Gandalf says quietly, "and he would be right to. The steward swore to hold the rule for the king, not to take it in his stead when he balked. Your greatness, Faramir, lies in your humility. Do not throw that away for a circlet of metal." Faramir laughs bitterly. "You told Aragorn much the same once." "Yes," Gandalf says, and he listened, perhaps too well. He lays a hand on Faramir's shoulder. "You are not alone, whatever you may feel. You have Éowyn, you have Imrahil, you have me for a little while yet, and you have Aragorn, whether he sits on that throne or not. Do not let fear drive you to a choice you will regret." Faramir nods, slowly. "Then I will not take the crown, not yet. But if Gondor begins to burn from within, Gandalf, I may have to choose between oaths and lives." Gandalf looks at the crown, gleaming in the dim light. "We all may. The burning begins not with fire, but with hunger. A poor harvest in Anorion, raiders in Ithilien, ships lost to Zahir's fleet. The strands weave together. Grain prices rise in Minas Tirith. The poor of the lower circles feel it first. Bread grows smaller, thinner. Children cry at night. Faramir orders grain from Lossarnach, from Lebanon, from the Vale of the Anduin. The lords comply, but slowly and with complaints. Some hoard, waiting for higher prices. Some sell to merchants who smuggle grain to Pelargir, where they can fetch better profit. In the markets, fights break out over loaves. The city guard tries to keep order, but they are stretched thin. Some are sympathetic to the hungry, others are harsh, their patience worn by long years of war and now of unrest. Caranil's men move quietly through the crowds, whispering, "See how the steward lets your children starve while he sends grain to the coasts? See how he cares more for ships than for the people of the White City? A true king would feed his own first." In the taverns, men mutter, Aragorn would not have let this happen. Aragorn is not here because Faramir pushed him away. The first riot comes on a gray morning when a shipment of grain finally arrives from Lebanon. The carts rumble through the second circle escorted by guards. The crowd swells around them, desperate hands reaching. A woman grabs at a sack. A guard shoves her back. She falls, her child wailing. Someone shouts. A stone flies. In moments, the street is chaos. Men swarm the carts, tearing open sacks, stuffing grain into their shirts, their mouths. Guards draw swords. Blood is spilled. The carts overturn, grain spilling into the mud, trampled. From a nearby alley, a man in a hood watches, a satisfied smile on his lips. He slips away before the guard can see him. By noon, the riot has spread to the third circle. Shops are looted. A warehouse owned by a prominent merchant who supports Faramir is set alight. Flames lick up, smoke darkening the sky. From the citadel, Faramir sees the smoke and feels his heart sink. He orders the bells rung, the guard mustered. He rides down into the city himself, Éowyn at his side, against Gandalf's counsel. "You cannot put out this fire alone," the wizard says. "Then I will burn with my people," Faramir replies. In the streets, the sight of the steward on horseback, unarmored, his banner at his back, has an effect. Some fall back, ashamed. Some shout curses. A stone glances off his shoulder. Éowyn's hand goes to her sword, but he stops her. He raises his voice, calling for calm, for reason. He orders that the grain be distributed fairly, that no one be turned away hungry while there is food to give. He promises more shipments, more aid. Slowly, the riot ebbs. The fires are beaten down. The city breathes, charred and shaken. That night, in a cellar in the fourth circle, Caranil meets with his closest allies. "This is only the beginning," he says. "The steward cannot feed his own people. He cannot protect our ships. He cannot keep order in the streets. How much longer will you tie your fortunes to his?" One of the lords, older, cautious, frowns. "You speak as if you have an alternative ready." Caranil smiles. "I do. There is a man in Lebanon of old blood. He is not ambitious. He would not seek the crown. But if we were to present him as a compromise, a man of Gondor, of Númenórean descent, not tainted by elvish ties, the people might accept him. The lords might. Even the South might, if we play our cards well. And Faramir?" another asks. "What of him?" Caranil's eyes are cold. "He will be offered a place in the new order. If he refuses, he will be removed. Gently, if possible. Not so gently, if not." "You speak of coup," the older lord says, his voice a whisper. "I speak of saving Gondor from burning," Caranil replies. "If we wait, the fire will consume us all." In Umbar, Zahir receives word of the unrest in Minas Tirith. He laughs. "Good," he says. "Let them tear at each other. We will strike when they are weakest." Lithir, watching him, is thoughtful. "Be careful," she says. "If Gondor falls too quickly, others will seize the spoils. The Easterlings, perhaps, or some new darkness. We do not want a vacuum. We want a balance, one in which the South is no longer subservient." Zahir waves a hand. "Do not worry, lady. I will not burn the White City to the ground. I will take her ports, her trade, her respect. I will make her treat with us as equals, not as conquered foes. But first, her pride must be broken. In Minas Tirith, Gandalf stands once more in the court of the fountain. The white tree is still dead. He feels the weight of years pressing on him. His time in Middle-earth is ending. He had hoped to leave behind a world at peace, or at least at rest. Instead, he sees new fires kindling where the old were quenched. He speaks softly, though no one is there to hear. "Aragorn," he murmurs. "Faramir, you are both good men in a world that does not often reward goodness. You have both refused crowns in your own ways, and now the crowns you would not take may be seized by those who hunger for them more than for justice." He sighs. Perhaps this is the way of men. Perhaps they must burn a little to learn. But must it be so much? In the north, Aragorn feels a tug on his heart, like a distant pain. He stands on the shores of Lake Nenuil, the water gray under a cloudy sky. Arwen comes to his side, her cloak drawn close against the wind. "You feel it," she says. "Yes," he replies. "Gondor is in turmoil. Faramir is pressed on all sides. Caranil moves. Zahir waits. The people are hungry. Will you go again?" she asks. He closes his eyes. He sees the white city, the empty throne, the burning streets. He hears Faramir's words, Gandalf's, Arwen's. He hears his own. "I refuse the crown," he says. "I thought to spare myself and Gondor from the dangers of a king. Instead, I have left a void that others rush to fill. My presence there now, would it heal or would it tear deeper the wound? Do you truly not know?" Arwen asks. He opens his eyes and they are full of pain. "I know this," he says. "If I go now, it cannot be as a captain or a counselor. It must be as a king. Nothing less will suffice. And I do not know if I am ready to bear that after all this time, after all that has happened, because I refused Arwen's gaze is steady. You may not have the luxury of readiness. The world seldom waits for us to be ready. It simply is, and we must meet it as we are." He looks at her, at the woman who gave up immortality for a man who would not be king. "Would you stand beside me," he asks quietly, "if I took the crown now, after so much delay, so much doubt?" She smiles, and there is both sorrow and love in it. "I chose you when you were a ragged ranger in my father's halls. I chose you when you walked into Mordor's shadow. I will choose you if you sit upon a throne or if you die in a ditch. The crown does not change my choice." He draws a breath, deep and shuddering. "Then I will go," he says, "not as a captain, as king if Gondor will still have me, if Faramir will not see it as betrayal, and if he does," Arwen asks, "then I will bear that too," Aragorn replies. "I have run from this long enough. My fear has cost too much. If Gondor burns from within while I stand aside, I am as guilty as any who light the fires. In Minas Tirith, the spark that will ignite the next blaze is struck in the great hall. Faramir has summoned the lords to council. The air is thick with tension. Caranil stands among them, his expression composed. "We cannot continue as we have," Faramir says. "The south presses us. Our people hunger. Our lords bicker. I propose that we form a stronger council with representatives from all the great houses to share in the burden of rule. Let decisions be made together, not by the steward alone." Murmurs ripple. Caranil speaks, his voice smooth. "A noble idea, my lord, but it does not address the root. The people do not hunger for counsels. They hunger for certainty, for a symbol, for a king." Faramir's jaw tightens. "We have no king." Caranil smiles. "We have no king who will take the crown. That is different. If Isildur's heir refuses, then perhaps the line of Anarion must be sought. There is a man in Lebanon." "Enough," Faramir says, his voice sharp. "You speak of treason." "I speak of Gondor's salvation," Caranil replies. "Will you let this city starve out of loyalty to a man who abandoned us? Will you cling to oaths made to a line that will not rule? Or will you let Gondor choose her own fate?" The hall erupts into argument. Some lords shout Caranil down, calling him traitor. Others nod, voices rising in agreement. Old grudges, old ambitions, old fears surface. The word king is flung back and forth like a weapon. Gandalf, standing near a pillar, feels the air crackle. This is how it begins, he thinks. Not with swords, but with words. Faramir raises his hand, calling for order. "We will not decide the fate of Gondor in a shouting match," he says. "We will take counsel. We will—" The doors of the hall swing open. A guard rushes in, breathless. "My Lord Steward." A rider approaches the city under a banner of the White Tree and 7 stars. The hall falls silent. Caranil's eyes narrow. Gandalf's widen. Faramir's heart lurches. The guard continues. He claims to bear a message from Aragorn, son of Arathorn. In the court of the fountain, under the dead white tree, Aragorn stands once more. He has ridden hard ahead of his companions, his cloak travel-stained, his face lined by more than the journey. He looks older than when he left, not in body, but in the weight he carries. Faramir comes to meet him, his steps quick despite his weariness. Gandalf follows, his staff tapping on the stone. "Aragorn," Faramir says, "you returned sooner than I expected." Aragorn bows his head, not in deference, but in acknowledgement of the other's burden. "I heard of your troubles. I could not stay away." Gandalf studies his face. "You have made a choice." "Yes," Aragorn says, "too late perhaps, but I have made it." He looks at the dead tree, then at the White Tower, then at Faramir. "I refused the crown once," he says. "I thought to spare Gondor from the dangers of my line, from my own pride. In doing so, I left her open to other dangers. I have seen what that has wrought. I will not run from this any longer." Faramir's breath catches. "You mean to—" "Yes," Aragorn says, "if Gondor will still have me. If you will not see it as the betrayal of a promise." Faramir laughs, a sound half relief, half disbelief. "Betrayal? Aragorn, I begged you to take this burden once. I have carried it since in the hope that you might change your mind. If you are now ready to be what you were born to be, I will gladly lay down the rod." Gandalf's eyes shine. Then perhaps there is hope yet. Caranil, watching from the edge of the court, feels his careful plans begin to crumble. A king returned will not be so easy to oppose. He slips away, his mind racing. The crowning of Aragorn is not the same as it once was. There is less innocent joy, more wary hope. The people have seen too much, suffered too much. They have heard his name praised and cursed. They have seen him come and go. Yet when he walks up the long stair to the Hall of the Kings, clad in mail and a simple black cloak, the murmur that runs through the crowd is still awe. The crown waits on its sable cushion, dust brushed away. The banners of Gondor hang above, stirred by a faint breeze. Gandalf takes the crown in his hands. He looks at Aragorn, at Faramir, at the assembled lords. "Now come the days of the king," he says, his voice carrying through the hall. "But not as we once thought. This is no simple tale of prophecy fulfilled. This is a choice made late, under shadow. Remember that." He turns to Aragorn. "Do you, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Elisar Telcontar, accept this crown, not as a gift of fate, but as a burden freely taken with all its perils?" Aragorn meets his gaze. His voice is steady. "I do, knowing what it may make of me, fearing it, but taking it nonetheless. For Gondor and for all free folk." Gandalf smiles faintly. "Then take it." He sets the crown upon Aragorn's head. The hall seems to hold its breath. Outside, in the court of the fountain, a wind stirs. High above, on the slopes of Mindalluin, where no man walks this day, a small sapling stirs in the snow, its white buds swelling. The cheers that rise from the city are not as wild as they might once have been, but they are deep. They are the sound of a people who have been near to breaking and now find, if not certainty, then at least a center. Faramir kneels, offering the white rod. "My lord," he says, and there is no bitterness in it, only profound relief. The last steward of Gondor surrenders his office. Aragorn takes the rod, then gives it back. "That office is not ended," he says. "Gondor has need of stewards still, to stand between the king and the people, to speak truth when others will not. Will you be my steward, Faramir, not in place of the king, but beside him?" Faramir looks up, surprised. Then he smiles, and it is like a man stepping out from under a great weight. "I will," he says. The lords watch, some with approval, some with calculation. Caranil's face is carefully blank. In Umbar, Zahir hears of the crowning with a frown. "So," he says, "the king finally takes his throne." Lithir nods. "It will make things harder. The people will rally. The lords will think twice before open rebellion. Then we must strike before he can settle," Zahir says, "before he can mend what is broken. A new king is vulnerable. He must prove himself. We will give him a trial of fire." He orders his captains to prepare for a bold raid, not on ships, but on the coasts of Belfalas, near Dol Amroth. He will strike where Gondor feels secure, to show that even a crowned king cannot protect all. In Minas Tirith, Aragorn begins to rule. He holds council with Faramir, with Imrahil, with Éomer, with Gandalf. He listens more than he speaks. He moves quickly to address the most pressing needs: grain distribution, shipbuilding, the defense of Pelargir and Dol Amroth. He lowers some levies, raises others, seeking a balance between the needs of war and the hunger of the people. He walks the lower circles unguarded, speaking with merchants and laborers. Some look at him with suspicion, remembering that he once left. Some with hope, some with a mixture of both. He does not promise easy answers. He promises only that he will not run again. Caranil watches all this with growing unease. His plans depended on a vacuum, on a weak center. Now there is a king, and not just any king, but one who has already won the love of many by his deeds before ever he wore the crown. Yet not all is lost. He begins to shift his rhetoric. In private, he says, "A king at last. Good. But look how late he came. Look how much we suffered while he hesitated. Is this the mark of a true king, or of a man who must be prodded into duty? And see how he leans on elves, on wizards, on Rohirrim. Is Gondor truly ruled from within, or is she now a puppet of strange powers?" His words find some ears. In the lower circles, some grumble that their bellies still ache, that the king's first decrees have not yet filled their tables. In the far provinces, some lords resent the new taxes levied to build more ships. The fire within Gondor has not gone out. It has only changed color. The trial by fire comes sooner than anyone expects. Zahir's fleet, swift and silent, strikes at dawn on a clear morning. They fall upon the coasts of Belfalas like a storm, black sails against the blue sky. Villages burn. Fishermen's boats are cut down like reeds. The smoke can be seen from the walls of Dol Amroth. Imrahil rallies his knights, riding hard along the coast to meet the raiders. He sends a desperate message to Minas Tirith. "They are at our door. We cannot hold long." In the White City, the alarm bells ring. Aragorn stands on the balcony of the citadel, the message in his hand, the wind tugging at his cloak. Faramir is at his side. Gandalf stands slightly behind, his staff a pale line against the stone. "They mean to test you," Gandalf says. to see if the new king is any stronger than the steward. Aragorn's jaw tightens. Then we will answer, swiftly and hard. He turns to Faramir. You will hold the city. Keep order. Watch Caranil and his like. I will ride with what men we can spare to aid Dol Amroth. Faramir nods. Take the Swan Knights as you go. Imrahil will need them. Aragorn hesitates. If I strip the city of too many men and unrest rises again, then I will face it, Faramir says. This is what we are now, Aragorn, two pillars. If one falls, the other must stand. Go. Aragorn clasps his arm. Guard what we have won. They ride. The journey to Dol Amroth is the blur of dust and hooves. Aragorn leads from the front, Anduril at his side, his banner flying. Men follow him with a fervor that is almost frightening. They see in him not only a king, but a last hope. On the coast, Zahir's men loot and burn. He stands on a low hill, watching the smoke rise, his face expressionless. He does not revel in the destruction. He sees it as a means to an end. A scout rides up, breathless. My lord, a force approaches from the north, the banner of the white tree. Zahir smiles grimly. Good. I was beginning to think the king had no stomach for a fight. They meet on a wide strand of white sand, trampled and blackened. The battle is fierce. Aragorn rides at the head of his men, his sword a bright arc in the sun. He moves with deadly grace, every stroke precise. Around him, the men of Gondor fight with renewed courage, their king among them. Zahir directs his forces with cold efficiency, using the terrain, feigning retreats, striking where Aragorn's line is thin. He does not seek a duel, he seeks to break the Gondorian force. Imrahil's knights crash into the corsair flank, their lances splintering. The swan banner flies beside the white tree. For a moment, it seems the tide will turn. Then a horn sounds from the south. More black sails appear on the horizon. Zahir had held back a reserve hidden beyond a headland. They sweep in now, landing fresh men behind Aragorn's line. The Gondorians find themselves caught between sea and land. On a rise above the field, Aragorn sees the trap closing. He hears the clash of steel, the cries of the wounded, the roar of the waves. He feels the weight of the crown upon his head of every choice he has made. If he presses forward, he may break Zahir's center, but his rear will be overrun. If he falls back, he may save more of his men, but Dol Amroth will burn. He thinks of Faramir in the White City, of Arwen in the north, of the people in the lower circles who have pinned their new hope on him. He thinks, this is what it means to be king, to choose which of your people will die. He raises his sword. To me, he cries, form on me. We strike for the hill. He chooses to cut through, to reach higher ground, to keep his force from being encircled. It means leaving some men to be overrun. It means Dol Amroth's outer villages will burn. The fighting is brutal. Gimli roars, his axe rising and falling. Legolas moves like a shadow, arrows finding eyes and throats. Imrahil fights like a man who knows his home is at his back. They reach the hill, battered but not broken. From there, Aragorn can see the whole field. He sees Zahir's banner, a black sail on a pole, moving among his men. He knows that if he can break the Corsair's will, the day may yet be saved. He looks at Imrahil. With me? Always, the prince says. They gather a wedge of knights, the best that remain. They lower lances, raise shields, and charge down the hill. The clash is like thunder. Aragorn and Zahir meet at the heart of the storm. For a moment, amid the chaos, they are face to face. You come late, king, Zahir says, his sword flashing. Where were you when your people starved? Where were you when your city burned? Aragorn parries, his eyes blazing. I am here now. He strikes. The duel is swift and deadly, more like a dance than a fight. Zahir is skilled, more than most men Aragorn has faced. He fights with a style from the south, fluid and deceptive. He scores a cut on Aragorn's arm, a shallow one, but enough to draw blood. Aragorn presses him, his own style a blend of many schools, honed over decades. He drives Zahir back step by step. Around them, men die. At last, Zahir missteps on the churned, bloody sand. Aragorn's blade flashes, knocking his sword aside. He could kill him with the next stroke. He hesitates for a heartbeat. He sees in Zahir's eyes not madness, but conviction. He sees a man who believes he fights for his people, as Aragorn does for his. He sees the enemy's shadow behind him, not as a dark lord, but as a long history of conquest and pride. Yield, Aragorn says. We need not be enemies. The world has changed. We can find another way. Zahir laughs, breathless. You think a crown makes you a peacemaker? You are still a lord of the West. Your peace is our submission. He lunges, snatching a dagger from his belt, aiming for Aragorn's heart. Aragorn twists, the blade grazing his side. He brings Anduril down. Zahir falls. The Corsairs' men see their captain die. For a moment, their line wavers. Some fight harder in rage. Some begin to fall back toward their ships. Imrahil seizes the moment, rallying his knights. The Gondorians push forward, driving the raiders back to the sea. The battle ends with the beach strewn with bodies, the water red at the edge. Zahir's black sails retreat, tattered. Dol Amroth is saved, but at a terrible cost. Aragorn stands on the blooded sand, his side burning, his arm bleeding, the weight of what he has done heavy upon him. He has won, but not decisively. Zahir's death will not end the South's resentment. It will make a martyr. He looks at the burning ruins of the coastal villages, at the weeping survivors. This is what my crown has bought, he says softly, to no one in particular. A different kind of fire. In Minas Tirith, the news of the battle reaches the city in fragments. At first, there is fear, rumors of Dol Amroth burning, of the king slain. Then more accurate reports arrive. The king lives, Zahir is dead. The coast is held. The city breathes a little. Caranel's rhetoric loses some of its sharpness. It is harder to argue that the king is weak when he has just slain the South's greatest captain in single combat. Yet the hunger remains. The discontent remains. The divisions remain. Faramir spends his days in council, his nights walking the streets in disguise, listening. He hears gratitude for the king's courage. He hears anger that some villages were left to burn. He hears fear that the South will strike again. He hears, beneath it all, a question that will not go away. What if the king had taken the crown sooner? Would Zahir have risen? Would Caranel have gathered followers? Would the people have starved? There is no answer. In the north, Arwen tends to the sapling on Mindalluin when she comes south at last. She stands with Aragorn in the high snows, looking at the small, fragile tree. It grew, she says. So did the fire, he replies. They bring the sapling down to the court of the fountain. The dead white tree is cut down at last, its dry wood burned with ceremony. The new tree is planted in its place, its white buds like stars. The people gather to watch. Some weep, remembering the long years of the dead tree as a symbol of their own stagnation. Some smile, seeing in the sapling a sign that the age of the king is truly begun. Aragorn stands before the tree, his hand on the hilt of Anduril, his crown heavy upon his brow. He feels no triumph. He feels the weight of every man who died on that beach, of every child who went hungry in the lower circles, of every choice he delayed until it was almost too late. He feels the eyes of Caranil on his back, calculating. He feels the absence of Gandalf, who has finally taken the straight road, leaving men to their own devices. He feels Arwen's hand in his, a small, steady anchor. Faramir stands beside him, the white rod in his hand, his face lined by care and years, but his eyes clear. The new trees' leaves stir in a faint breeze. Middle-earth has changed. In Umbar, Zahir's followers gather around his tomb. They speak of him as a hero who stood against the West. They vow to continue his struggle, not under a single captain now, but as a cause. His death has not ended the conflict, it has given it a symbol. In Harad, Lithir returns to her people, her mission half accomplished. She has seen the West's new king, seen his hesitation and his resolve. She knows that the South will not easily bend to him, but she also knows that outright war will break them both. She begins to speak of treaties, of equal trade, of borders respected. Some listen. Some call her a traitor. The fire of the South will smolder for a long time. In the Shire, Sam plants more trees. He does not know the details of kings and battles. He knows only that letters come sometimes from the South, bearing news that the king has taken his throne at last, that there was trouble, but it is mending. Slowly, he reads them to Frodo, whose eyes are distant. "Do you think they will be all right, Sam?" Frodo asks one evening, as the sun sets over the party field. Sam looks at the sky, at the smoke from hobbit holes, at the green fields. "I reckon they will," he says. "Not perfect, never that. There will always be trouble. But they have good folk down there. Mr. Aragorn, Mr. Faramir, the rest. They will muddle through, same as us." Frodo smiles faintly. Muddling through. Perhaps that is the true gift. Years pass. Gondor does not burn to ash, nor does she stand unscathed. There are more raids from the south, though none as bold as Zahir's. There are more riots in the city, though fewer as the grain stores slowly fill. There are plots among the lords, some of which Caranil is part of, some of which move beyond him. Aragorn rules for many years. He is a good king, though not a perfect one. He makes mistakes. He trusts some men he should not, and fails to trust others he should. He is harder than some wished, softer than others wanted. He leans on Faramir, on Éowyn, on Imrahil, on Arwen. He never forgets the years when he refused the crown. He never forgets the fires that burned because of that choice. Faramir grows older in his service. He becomes a figure of quiet authority, loved by many, resented by some. He walks often in Ithilien, which blossoms under his care, a green jewel between Gondor and Mordor. He and Éowyn raise children there who grow up between ruin and renewal. Caranil's end is not glorious. He overreaches at last in a plot to place his chosen king on the throne, while Aragorn is away in the north on a diplomatic mission. The plot is discovered not by spies, but by a servant who overhears too much and goes to Faramir out of simple loyalty. Caranil is arrested. He stands in the great hall before the throne he once sought to control. Aragorn sits upon it, his face grave. Faramir stands at his right. The lords fill the hall, some with satisfaction, some with unease. "You spoke of saving Gondor," Aragorn says, "by undermining her in secret, by allying with those who strike at her from without. How is that love?" Caranil lifts his chin. "I sought to save her from you, from your hesitation, from your elven ties, from your long absence. You left us, king. You left us to starve and burn while you wandered in your northern ruins. Why should we trust you now? Aragorn does not flinch. You are not wrong, he says quietly. I did leave. I did hesitate. My fear cost lives. But your answer to my failure was not to strengthen Gondor, but to weaken her further, to invite her enemies to our table. That is not love. That is ambition, clothed in fine words. Caranil laughs, a short, bitter sound. And what is a king, if not ambition clothed in prophecy? Faramir's voice cuts through. Enough. You have been judged. You will be exiled from Gondor, your lands forfeit, your name struck from the rolls of the nobility. You will live, but you will have no voice here. Caranil's face twists. Exile. To wither in some foreign land while you play at kings and gardens. So be it. But remember this. I am not the last who will question your right to rule. I am only the first who failed. He is led away. Outside the city walls, as he walks into exile, he looks back once at the White Tower, gleaming in the sun. He imagines it burning. He smiles, faintly. In the end, it is not fire that takes Aragorn, but time. He grows old, as men do, though more slowly. His hair turns gray, his step less sure. He sees his children grow, his realm flourish and falter and flourish again. He sees Faramir laid to rest in the tombs of the stewards, Éowyn weeping beside him. He sees new lords rise, some noble, some less so. He never fully mends the rift with the South. There are treaties, truces, trade agreements. There are also skirmishes, betrayals, border disputes. The legacy of Zahir's defiance lives on in songs and stories. The South will never again be a mere shadow of the East, nor a docile vassal of the West. It is its own fire, sometimes warming, sometimes burning. In his last days, Aragorn lies in the House of the Kings, the same hall where he once refused the crown. Arwen sits beside him, her hand in his. The light through the high windows is soft, dust motes drifting like slow snow. He speaks, his voice thin but clear. I thought once that refusing the crown would spare Gondor. I was wrong. I thought later that taking it would mend all. I was wrong again. There is no choice without cost. Only different fires. Arwen's eyes shine with unshed tears. You did what you could with what you had, when you had it. That is all any of us can do. He smiles faintly. You sound like Gandalf. He would be amused to hear that, she says. He looks past her, at the empty throne. Do you think, he asks, that if I had taken the crown that day, long ago, things would be better, or worse, or only different? Arwen does not answer. There is no answer. He closes his eyes. Outside, the white tree stands in full bloom, its branches heavy with white flowers. Children play in its shade. Merchants haggle in the markets. Soldiers drill in the courts. Somewhere in the lower circles, a man grumbles about taxes. Somewhere in the upper, a lord plots a small, petty scheme. The world goes on. In the houses of healing, a young healer with dark hair and gray eyes, a distant descendant of Faramir, tends to a wounded soldier from the southern borders. She listens to his tales of raids and uneasy truces, of kings and captains, of old grudges and new friendships. Do you think it will ever end? He asks her. The fighting? She smiles, tired but kind. No, not entirely, but it may grow less. And in between, there will be years of peace. Enough for children to grow, for trees to take root, for songs to be written. That is worth fighting for. He nods, slowly. At night, when the city is quiet, the hall of the kings stands in shadow. The throne is empty, for now. The crown rests upon its cushion, waiting for the next head that will bear it, the next heart that will be broken by it, the next hands that will try and fail and try again to hold a realm together. In the court of the fountain, the white tree gleams faintly in the starlight. A single leaf, loosened by some small unseen cause, drifts down through the still air. It lands upon the cold stone where long ago another crown once lay untouched upon a black cloth. It lies there, perfectly still, like a tiny white flame that has chosen at last to rest.